Brett Siegel released his latest mock draft, and included in that mock draft, he mentions that there are several people around the NBA that believes that the Chicago Bulls are trying to enter the top 12 in this year's draft. We're going to talk about it. And then to end today's episode with the expectations that the Chicago Bulls will announce their finalists for the head coaching position, I'm going to give you three things the said head coach must bring to Chicago. But before we talk about it and break it all down, you gotta hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shot Boys podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down for today's daily episode. So if you're tuned in, love what you're listening to, and you got a simple two-step, go ahead and follow the simple two-step that I'm asking for on our road to 10K. Make sure you go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. It's the easiest way that you can support the channel and help us reach that goal of getting that 10K. But now let's get into the content, man. Hey, Brett Siegel released his latest mock draft. And during that mock draft, he mentioned something that has me like, that's something that was on the line of what I was thinking anyway. But if you're wondering what the mock draft entailed, this for the Chicago Bulls, 4 selections in this year's NBA draft, Brett Siegel had the Chicago Bulls selecting at number 4, Caleb Wilson. At 15, Hannes Steinbach at 15, coming out of Washington. And then with the 2 second-round picks, first at 38, had the Chicago Bulls selecting Ugonna Oyenso, and he played at Virginia. He's originally from Nigeria, played 18 minutes last year and had 6.5 points per game with 5 rebounds. So that tells he's probably a role player coming off the bench at Virginia last year. Then at 56, Brett Siegel had the Chicago Bulls selecting Quadir Copeland, point guard out of NC State with the 56th pick. This is a 6'6 guard that averaged 13 points and 6 assists on 40% shooting from the 3. Interesting. I ain't mad at it. We'll obviously see what happens in this year's draft when the time comes around. However, the most important thing from Brett Siegel when he talked about the pick at 15 with Steinbach, he said this: as a result of all the workouts the Chicago Bulls are hosting, as well as more that could be planned with lottery projected talents, some around the league have begun to wonder if new executive Bryson Graham is attempting to utilize the 15 pick and other assets to move up into the top 12. That's something that's been along the lines of what I've been saying this entire time. I've been on the mindset of you stay at 4. No need to trade up. No need to trade back. Whoever falls to you at 4, you take said player. Because you can't go wrong with Darren Peterson. You can't go wrong with Cam Boozer. You can't go wrong with Caleb Wilson. So you stand pat at 4. But the 15th pick, you can do whatever the hell you want to do with it. And at first, I was like stand pat at 15 simply because, I feel like this draft is loaded and you don't have to mortgage future assets. But then my co-host C-Dub had a wonderful, fantastic point and said, hey, this is a loaded draft. How do we know that Bryson Graham feels confident in 2027's draft? And it's a valid point. So I go ahead and I say, hey, at 15, if you want to go out there and let's say trade up, how far they're willing to trade up, it doesn't really say. Will teams be willing to trade out of their position for the 15th pick with an additional first next year? I don't know. Could it be on the table? Absolutely. But I say all that to say, if you are the Chicago Bulls and you want to poach as many players out of this quote-unquote loaded draft, I say move off 15 if that's how you see fit. I understand that originally my point was to stay at 15 to not garner or risk future assets. However, there's not just one way that you can go about this with trading some of the assets that you have available to you if you're the Chicago Bulls. You have a boatload of second round picks and you still have all your available first round picks. Now, let's not get crazy with this and try to trade away multiple first round picks. But can Bryson Graham be creative enough if he says, hey, player X is falling from where I originally had him at? Can I go up to 10? Can I go up to 11 with Golden State, which I don't see happening because I believe that they're going to stay put unless there's a player on their radar and they're like, yeah, this guy's going off our board anyway. If we move back to 15, we could probably see fit. Can Bryson Graham get creative enough to say, hey, maybe we can try to throw in some players into the mix alongside the draft capital? You have decisions that you're going to have to make all throughout this roster. He already said that there's no player untouchable. Me personally, even though I'm not running the team, I feel like, guys, at least for this season, you have two untouchable players in Matas Buzelis and Josh Giddey. More so Josh Giddey, at least for half the season before the trade deadline, as it currently stands. I believe there's going to be an evaluation period for guys like everybody, really. But you also have some guys who you could potentially move off of and utilize as trade assets, like a Trey Jones, who a lot of teams can use right now, like a Jalen Smith, who a lot of teams can use right now. Injuries really hindered the good season that Jalen Smith was having this past season. And I think that some teams will potentially bite on the idea of, hey, we're going to get us a big and we're going to get us future assets plus the 15. I think that could be an enticing deal. Now, if you want to make moves with somebody else who needs point guard help, Trey Jones is a really good help in that department. We'll see what happens with that in its totality. But I think that you can get creative and do a lot of different things. I know that Bulls fans are really, really trying to see if Bryson Graham can come off of P. Will. If he can, in a deal that makes sense, that'll have a lot of Chicago Bulls fans happy and congratulating Bryson Graham. But as it is right now, who will be on the radar in that top 12? Do you risk that additional capital for a guy like Cameron Carr if you're afraid that a team at between 12 and 14 can snag them up before you get your hands on them? If Ade Mara falls, which I don't believe is going to happen, do you say, hey, we need him as our center alongside Caleb Wilson and Matas Buzelis to hold down that front court? What do you do? Do you go out and look at some of the guards? What if Keaton Wagler falls? What if Burris fall? You're going to be having to make some tough decisions if you're Bryson Graham, and that's why he get paid the absolute big bucks. This is just me just speculating. Obviously, Brett Siegel is doing a little bit of speculating as well, but he has more sources than most. So we're going to say, hey, the Chicago Bulls are doing their due diligence. A couple of weeks ago, we heard the Chicago Bulls go out there and say, hey, what does it cost to move up to 1? We heard those rumors. We heard those discussions. We talked about it. Myself, I shut it down saying you're good at 4. There makes no sense to move up to try to do anything. Between 1 through 4, you're fine, especially if you can get a guy like Caleb Wilson. So all in all, it's just to say, whoever's out there on the radar, we have to allow the Chicago Bulls to do their job. Right now, we feel good about Bryson Graham, but at the end of the day, it's going to come down to Bryson Graham and him and his decisions. We're going to be judging off the decisions. We love everything he said at the press conference. We love everything that he's been saying even at the draft lottery. But at the end of the day, we about that action. I don't know how many times I got to tell him. But hey, I got a question for you all, and I would like for you all to drop your answer in the chat. If you were to move up for said player on the board between 5 and 12, who would you be moving up for? Is it Ade Mara? Is it Keaton Wagler? Is there anybody else on that docket that you'll be moving up from 15 into that top 12? Let me know down below. But hey, now we move on to the latter part of today's episode to talk about the head coaching search. So we heard last week that the expectation is within the first 2 weeks of June, the Chicago Bulls should be securing their next head coach for the foreseeable future. We've also heard that, hey, this week the Chicago Bulls are going to cut down their list of candidates and put out, or we should be hearing at least, the finalists for the jobs and what is anticipating to look like that these guys will be looking at some second interviews with some coaching candidates. Whoever that may be, we shall see. My anticipation is you're going to hear guys like Chris Quinn. I'm not too fond of it, but I think that we're going to hear Wes Unseld and we're going to hear Michael Nouri's name. Those will be the top three that I'm anticipating will be on the finalist list for the Chicago Bulls. So I have to talk about what I would like to see or what the new head coach must bring to Chicago. You must bring this to Chicago if you want to be successful, at least in my opinion. Obviously, the coaches are going to do whatever the hell they want to do. They're going to do things how they see fit. These are the experienced guys. But from a guy that's from the outside watching in and has been tuned in to watching the Chicago Bulls for the last few seasons, I have three major keys. Key number one, player development. How do you maximize the skills of the players on your team? You're about to potentially have 4 young guys enter this team and quote unquote infusing this team with talent. How do you maximize that? You have young players on your team that needs more coaching, needs more opportunity. How do you maximize the skills of those players? We're talking about the Montes Buzelis. We're talking about the Josh Giddey. We're talking about the Rob Dillahams. We're talking about Leonard Miller. And I'm going to say it. How do you get the best out of P. Will? Because as of right now, it looks like nobody wants him. It looks like he's an overpaid reserve. Can you get something out of this player? Because I'm looking all around the NBA all throughout these playoffs, and I'm just pretty much saying, like, hey, man, look at Dylan Harper in the finals. He's been better than De'Aaron Fox. Better than De'Aaron Fox. We look at the past series, Oklahoma City, A.J. Mitchell, and then a couple other names that came in and filled in and helped their team. You know what I'm saying? How do you get the best out of said players that need reps, that needs to have opportunity and need to develop to help the sake of the team? Key number 2, play style. What will your play style entail? Is this going to be similar to Billy Donovan, to where it's just penetrate the paint, kick out for a 3? Is it going to look like the Boston Celtics, live and die by the 3-point shot? Is it going to be something that's more adaptable and more so tailored to the opposing team that you're playing? Because we found out once Ayo Dosunmu left Chicago, he was able to shoot middies. That's something we've been asking Montes Buzelis to do. We wanted to see a larger shot profile, a larger sample of shots for Montes Buzelis on all 3 levels. Not just at the rim and at the 3-point line. What about the mid-range where we feel like Montes Buzelis can be effective because teams know that he's a dunker? We need to see a play style that is adaptable to the team that you're facing. Let's be a multifaceted team to be successful. Because how many times have we said and looked at the Boston Celtics, a team that lives and die by the 3? Bro, y'all should have been in the championship. But the reason, now granted, they got 1, right? But how many more could they have if it wasn't just live and die by the 3? With the talent that they had around there, with the stars that they have around there, they selling themselves short, in my personal opinion. Kudos and congratulations to the championship. But however, If Joe Mazzulla adapts a little bit differently, maybe we talking about another championship in Boston, or at least an opportunity in these finals. So we need an adaptable play style. And the last thing, toughness. Now, when you talk about some of the coaching candidates, we're talking about Micah Nori, who's going to be, if he's selected, will be coming from Minnesota, who told the Denver Nuggets, the champs, not reigning champs, but some champs, y'all combs, and proceeded to went out there and bust their ass. Toughness. What about Chris Quinn? We know, even though he coacher has not had much success for the last, 3-4 years, we know there's a standard in that culture. So we need a guy to bring some toughness to Chicago. I understand our players loved Billy Donovan. I understand our players respected Billy Donovan as a man, but let's call a spade a spade. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it 100. Let's keep it a beam. The team lacks some toughness in some areas, even when we had guys like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. Let's call a spade a spade. So hopefully the new coach can bring Chicago some toughness. This is a hard-nosed city. We work hard and we party harder. You got to be tough in these streets of Chicago. That's what I'm hoping the next head coach can bring, and he must bring to the Chicago Bulls. Toughness. We need that toughness running through Chicago. You know what I'm saying? We already seeing other guys bring it in other sports for Chicago. Y'all seen one of our favorite head coaches in Ben Johnson say F the rivals. We need a coach to go out there and say F the rivals. Forget who we playing against. Y'all talented enough to beat whoever. Even if we ain't even there yet. It needs to be a step in the right direction to say, screw all that. We're not going for none of that soft stuff. And we also need the coach to grill players, but also give them an opportunity to make up for their mistakes. That goes along with the toughness part of it. Because we looked at Billy Donovan time and time and time again. Reprimand the young players and just sit them on a bench. What about Miss Johnson and Carter Bryant? He grilled that boy. Told him I believed in him. Threw him back in the game. We've seen examples of that. Let the young guys make up for their mistakes. This is going to be a young team. It's going to be a team that's going to have to grow together to be productive on the basketball court. And there you have it. I got my 3 things the next head coach must bring to Chicago. Y'all let me know how y'all feeling about them all. He must be a player development, maximizing player skills, an adaptable play style, and toughness. We tired of this soft stuff. Chicago, we deserve more. So let's make sure that we got a head coach that knows what's ahead of them. Let's go ahead and get it. For sure. We deserve it. Y'all deserve it. But hey, man, that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode of Shy Boys Podcast. Before y'all get up out of here, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well, man. We are on our road to 10K. Do the simple 2-step process, hitting that like button, hitting that subscribe button, and supporting the channel in the easiest way possible. A 2-step ain't never been this easy, bruh. Hit that like button and subscribe. But hey, man, I appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all always see red. And y'all already know I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure. Peace.
Cognac.